Hi, welcome back to the Story Hour podcast, Voices Unscripted, Stories Rewritten, with your host, Sara Jaswal, a registered counselor, certified grief educator, and a certified life coach, and a lover of the human experience and deeply passionate about getting to know people on a soul level. And so today I am doing a guest episode, and I have a very special guest with me today, and we're going to talk all about vision loss. If you've been listening to me and you follow me, you know that's a huge part of my story and my journey. And I have someone on here who's actually a very good friend of mine that I met a couple of years ago. And so we'll get into that story in a little bit of how we met, but I'm really excited for you to tune into this episode. So without further ado, I welcome Chandra in. Hi, Chandra. Welcome.
Hello, Sarah. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good, good. Yeah, it's nice to have you. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm doing great.
Yeah,
I'm doing great. Yeah.
it's so nice to have you here. I'm really excited for everyone to hear your story and to really get an idea and more insight from someone with lived experience who has a visual impairment, which is different than mine. So I will kind of reference that a bit throughout the episode because I know a lot of you know my story and the low vision that I have, but Chandra's got a very different condition. We have a lot of parallels, but obviously his story is his story. So, yeah. Chandra, before we go into the diagnosis and any of that, would you please? I think a lot of times what happens with not just vision loss, but in general, is we start to define ourselves with the vision loss or the disability or whatever challenges that we're having. I know I did that for sure. It was like, well, hi, I'm Sarah and I have vision loss. And so I think before we even get into any of that, I would love get to know you first a little bit before we go into that. So if you can briefly tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you do, what you love, maybe some fun facts, just briefly.
Absolutely, Sarah. First of all, thanks for having me. And I think before I just get about myself, I just want to describe myself physically for the visual context for the people who are just tuning in by audio apps
Mhm.
or the people who have challenges seeing our videos, right? I mean, now that we're talking about visual loss, I
Right.
just want to give us a visual context. So I'm a South Asian brown male, it's brown skin, obviously, having a dark black hair. I think it's a bit shabby and bit longer. And I'm wearing a navy blue sweater and sitting on an office chair. I think in the background you'll see the accent wall in gray color. That's for the visual context. So about myself, like I mentioned, I'm a South Asian brown. I was born and raised in India. All my education was in India. I moved to Canada in early 2000s. I have a family, beautiful wife, and beautiful kids. And I work as an IT consultant, and that's it on introduction about myself. Again, my hobbies obviously are, I mean, the hobbies and passion I would say is running. I just picked this endurance sport. I do participate in half marathons. That's my meditation and medication, I would say. And also, I've been learning classical music. I've been learning this classical music. It's called Carnatic. It's Carnatic. It's a
Mhm.
South Indian music. I learned it on flute. I don't know if you can see it. I'm just showing the wooden bamboo flute. It's about a
Mhm.
foot. You just have about 8 holes.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this and have a great instructor and tutor. And he is from India. The fun fact is he doesn't understand English and I don't understand his language. He speaks Tamil. We speak only music and
Mm,
it's video, right?
I love
Uh,
that. Yeah.
yeah. And
That's
people ask me to do that. So never on videos. So and I love cooking and I help my wife gardening and stuff. So
nice.
these are all my hobbies. And coming back to the vision loss, you want to get into the fun facts, Sarah?
Yeah,
Or
let's just pause there for
sure.
a second. So, thank you so much. I love that so much. And I love what you said about that's your meditation and your medication. I am going to use that, Chandra. I love that so much. I couldn't agree more. And we're going to definitely get into Chandra's running. He runs marathons, which I think is so inspiring. We will get to that later in the conversation. Um, before we get into your diagnosis, I just want to let people know how we met. So I talk a lot about going to doing alternative treatment, and so if you've been following my journey, I went to India to an Ayurvedic eye hospital in Kerala in the south of India. And so it's called Sri Daryam Ayurvedic Eye Hospital. I've talked about it. You can go back and listen to, I think, the second or third episode where I dive deep into what the experience was. So that's where Chandra and I met. We met in February, March 2024, so almost 2 years. And we just really hit it off. We had obviously a lot of just similarities and going through, vision loss together. And so that's how we met. And we just, yeah, conversation was going. It was so nice to connect with you, Chandra. All that was a really good experience. I know we met other people as well. That was a really special time, actually. And so,
Right.
yeah, Chandra and I carried on, continued, we exchanged information. And he's also from in Canada, so that was another like bonus at the time. And yeah, I just wanted to share that because that's a big part of my journey, but also how Chandra and I met. So just wanted to share that. And we might get into that a little bit later on the conversation about Sri Daryam. I might, pick your brain about what your insights were and reflections on that, Chandra. But yeah, let's start with the diagnosis. So, why don't you start off by telling us the name of your diagnosis, when you were diagnosed, and then what it means, if you can, in the simplest terms for someone who's never heard of it or doesn't know anything about sight loss? If you can start
Sure.
there and then go into sharing with us how you would describe your vision is today based on your condition and your progression.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yeah. I've been diagnosed with a condition called retinitis pigmentosa. It's also called as RP. It falls under category of IRD, inherited retinal dystrophies or diseases. It's basically a genetic disorder. So basically it's pigmentation of retinas. So the symptoms, the classical symptoms of that is obviously the night blindness, or you can't see the stuff in night, or the low vision. I mean, when the light is very low, you can't see stuff. And the classic symptoms again is the loss of peripheral vision, and you lose this depth perception and color perception, and there's a lot of blind spots all over, and that's the classic symptoms of RP. But my condition also is tricky because when I was diagnosed, it's called RP, retinitis pigmentosa. But I mean, the classic symptom, like I said, is like you lose peripheral vision, and people end up having the tunnel vision. But in my condition, the last couple years, it's weird because I lost central vision. I did ask this question to my specialist when I met him last year. I said, the journals and medical professionals in the past mentioned that the classic symptom of RP is loss of peripheral vision. Of course, I have this night blindness and stuff.
Right.
But why is that? I'm losing central vision. I lost central vision. It's not lost. I mean, I lost central vision.
Mm.
So the current situation, like if you ask me what does it, I'll keep jumping here and there, Sarah, but I try to cover what it means in terms of vision. But my current situation, what I see when I lost central vision is, I mean, it's a good bright light. If you move your hand, right? I'm moving my hand in front of me. I can see the hand is moving,
Mm-hmm.
but how many fingers I cannot, right? So it's like I have this hand movements. I can understand what hand movements is in front of bright light, but as you reduce the light, I mean, I wouldn't recognize if it's a hand or anything. I would not even see if there's something in front of me. That's my current state. So it's tricky. I've been diagnosed as RP, retinitis pigmentosa, but again, now here I lost central vision. I have lost some peripheral vision, and it's a lot of blind spots. So again, the root cause for that is, if you look at, I'm not a medical professional myself, but this is what I picked up from the specialists and from articles which I've read and I've been reading. In the retina, you have this cone and rod cells. Basically, rod cells are used or helpful for the night vision and peripheral vision, and cone cells are basically primarily used for identifying colors and sensing the images and whatnot. And they capture and send this nerve cells into the brain, and that's why know what it is. I mean, what's in the peripheral, what is that image you're looking at. So over the period, these cells die, and when the cells die, they form into pigments, and that's where you have those problems, where when you get into the symptoms which is mentioned.
Right.
So that's typical. But there's so much to it. I mean, this is, as a layman, I understood. I just ingrained in my mind that this is the classic symptoms of RP and IRD.
Right. So, yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. I think it does help listeners who don't know anything about the eye. I mean, I didn't know really much until I walked into this journey as well. So, it's called retinitis pigmentosa, just for everyone listening. And then also the acronym that we use often or you'll hear is called RP. And so, Chandra, you said mainly it damages the night vision and then also the peripheral vision. Correct, right? And
And
then, but for you, you've also lost central vision as well.
correct. I have little bit of peripheral vision left
Right.
with blind spots.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, some of the symptoms you mentioned, you don't have a depth perception.
Right.
When you climb the stairs, down the stairs, you wouldn't know there are stairs. I mean, you lose completely depth perception.
Right.
Of course, you can't identify the images. When you have people standing in front of you, absolutely no idea who the person is, right? And also the colors. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so interesting. And someone asked me this, my friends did actually a couple of weeks ago, just recently, because there's actually there's a dating show online on TV, and there was a girl on there and she has RP. So she was sharing her story about her RP, and my friends obviously know about my situation and they're like, "Oh, I think it's the same thing that you're going through." Because but the conditions are very different. And so the name of my condition is gyrate atrophy, which is like so unheard of, right? RP is very common, unfortunately. But for me, mine's called gyrate atrophy. But for me, it's the same thing. My peripheral vision has damage and my night vision is very poor. My central vision, I still have a lot of good central vision. I need things magnified and what have you. But so it's interesting. And I didn't know how to answer them because I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. And they're like, well, it sounds like the same because she was also sharing peripheral vision and night vision. And I had a specialist appointment actually a couple of days ago and I meant to ask him and I totally forgot, but it's the same thing. And over time, I'm assuming mine would be tunnel vision too because I'm losing a lot more of my peripheral vision. I just thought I'd share that because you touched on that and it was really interesting to see the name is different of the diagnosis, but the symptoms are very parallel.
Right. And people ask me, I mean, I mean, it's like curious. I can understand what they're asking. Okay, what do you see, right? And explain to me what it will look like for a normal person who has sight. So the best possible way I can explain to them, I have been explaining, and they kind of are convinced is, okay, you stand in front of a mirror, right? Take a shower, right? Be it a bathroom, and it's all steamed up, it's all fogged up, right? Now
Mhm,
you stand in front of it. So what do you see? You see some image. I mean, you have a light on. Now, the other thing is take a marker, right? And put the spots all over it. What do you see? Now, with the peripheral vision, take a cloth, and if it's a rectangular thing, rub a 10 degrees in either side, right? 180 degrees, right? And that's like more clearer. It's not foggy, but add spots to it. So now that's exactly what you see. You see there's somebody standing in front of you, no idea, no recollection. You can't see yourself clearly, right?
mhm,
And it's fogged up. And now, if you want to see what happens in the night, dim the light. What do you see in the mirror? So that's exactly what I explain to people. And some people, I think they get it. What I try to explain, I said, oh, yeah, now I get it, right?
mhm. There's actually
Oh,
charts as well for anyone who is curious to know. I saw this at my doctor's office, but also I work for CNIB, and they also hand out I don't know if they're cards or what they are, but they have like what someone who is fully sighted sees, someone who has RP, someone who has glaucoma. You can actually look through the card and see what someone with those conditions have. So you can also look this up if you're actually curious for anyone listening of like what do you see if you're fully sighted versus what someone like Chandra or myself see. Thanks for sharing that, Chandra. I think it gives people a really good idea of that. Kind of going to the next part of it, what did the progression of your actually backtrack? When did you say you were diagnosed again? How long have you been in this journey?
I knew this when I was back in India, but back in India when I was there, you're talking about mid 90s and late 90s when I was there. I knew, I mean, I got diagnosed by accident. But with the lack of technology, I mean, internet was just picking up,
Right.
and I was just in teen, you have the teenage hormones and stuff, you have other distractions. I
Hmm.
was okay, I was managing, some managing stuff. I do have, when I found some of the things which I did, what I did was slightly odd. I mean, it's not. like during my games when I play cricket or soccer, right? Things I could see the ball coming at me, and when it's certain distance, it disappears, right? And during nighttime, I couldn't see properly, right? But I always thought that's how everybody sees, right?
Right.
And I ignored. I mean, I may have other things to worry about.
Yeah.
But only after I moved to Canada, when I met with the doctor, and when I said I have an RP, he referred me to a specialist. Thankfully, I should say I've been lucky to find all these good specialists. I mean, I have people around me, right, who are knowledgeable. I mean, they referred me to right people,
Right.
and got referred to specialists who are specialized in RP and
So
other.
when you came to Canada, so how long has it been in total, do you think now, from the time you got diagnosed in Canada to today?
It's more than 20 years, Sarah.
Okay, wow.
And things have progressed. I mean, the time I first saw the specialist till now, in the recent, I think I saw the specialist like in 3 or 4 months ago, things have changed.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's no cure to it, right? I mean, you can only visit the specialist once a year. There's nothing they can do.
Right.
All
Okay, so about 20 years, just to give people an idea of how long you've been navigating this for. Yeah,
right.
long time.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so what did the progression of your vision loss look like? Was it gradual? Was it sudden? Or was it something in between? Because I think a lot of times, which we are going to get into, misconceptions, people, again, it's not right or wrong. It's not bad. People are just not educated on it, right? I didn't know anything about this until I had to go through it. So, really trying to get people to understand, like, um, does it, like, I think people think, does it happen all of a sudden? Like, do you just wake up like this? So I'm curious for you personally, was it gradual? Like you said, you started noticing it when you were a teenager, when you were back in India in the 1990s, but then you kind of brushed it off and you assumed that's just how everyone saw. So I'm curious if you can tell us, like, once you did get diagnosed officially here, was it gradual? Was it sudden? Or was it something in between all that?
No, I mean, in my case, it's slightly different. Like I said, RP is genetic. I mean, I have two siblings, older and younger. My older brother is diagnosed. It's recessive. What I hear here is RP is recessive. I mean, what it means is, okay, my older brother is diagnosed with RP. He's legally blind now,
Mhm.
right? So blessing in disguise. I mean, I always look at my brother. I mean, he's my role model, right? Every time I'm down, I speak to him. He manages well. He's very calm. He's into IT. He's doing well in his profession, right? So I knew it. I mean, it's just that I got more into it when I moved to Canada and I started noticing it. That's when I started picking my brother's brain as to what exactly he's going through, what is this. So I always knew that this is what it is. And again, I used to baseline myself against him. So my baseline is my brother, and I also benchmark, right? What he was 10 years ago and what he is right now. I know, and it's actually working in that direction. And he's legally blind. So what that means is eventually I'll get to the stage where I'm legally blind. I'll be legally blind,
So right
right?
now you're not legally blind as per like the medical like the yeah
Correct,
reports. Okay.
correct. Not yet. My vision right now is I can see the hand movements
Yeah.
or the hand gestures. The next stage after hand movement is legal blindness.
Oh, okay.
So that's where I am. I mean, if I was having hand gestures, I mean, I can just read out the fingers, that's slightly better. I mean, the next progressive state is hand movements, and the next is legal blindness. I think there's something beyond legal blindness. I'm not thinking about that. It's
Right.
a
Yeah.
one step at a time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We don't need to worry about that right now. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's something else that if you're listening to that, to understand that vision loss is not black and white by any means,
Yeah,
and there's just so many things that come with it.
yeah.
um okay, I want to get into a little bit of the emotional aspect of things and mentally, emotionally, how this impacts you. I want to get your insight on it, Chandra. So what do you remember most, I guess, vividly about either receiving the diagnosis or just knowing that you were seeing the deterioration happen, the moment itself, or even just like your internal reaction, whether that was at the beginning or just overall when you started to realize, like, okay, this is happening and I'm losing my vision and I don't really know what that looks like for my future.
Right. So emotional part is a I don't know how to answer because the first time. Actually, there are two times I remember. I don't know one in India. I don't know when. I don't remember the exact situation. But again, the second time in Canada, in mid 2000s when I moved, right? Or when I landed, when I failed the driver's test, right? So it said, no, sorry, yeah, when you have this the vision test, they said, do you have glasses? I said, yeah. I used to wear readers, and I got the readers and just try to read what they're trying to show, and I couldn't. And these guys are like, man, you have some serious issues. Go see a specialist. And sorry, they can't pass you on that driver's test.
That was
So
before you saw the specialist and got diagnosed. So obviously you're trying to get your license. So that's how you initially kind of found out.
correct, correct. I mean, I knew I have this, but again, I didn't know the impact of this,
Right.
right? Because I was still managing myself. I knew what I was seeing. I was wearing the reading glasses and the readers and stuff to
Mhm.
read, right? I was managing myself, but again,
Right.
the first time it hit me hard was when I was rejected for the driver's test. I'm like,
Can
okay,
we
no.
can we talk about that for a second? Because I think that part is so big. And again, I talk about it a lot. I know I've shared that with you too, Chandra. It's like, I mean, I feel so privileged and blessed that I can drive now with, doing all this extra testing. But can you speak to that about like that emotional toll or that just what about it? That, what about losing your license
I
that
never had. I
affected you?
never had license. The thing is, you enter North America, right? The first thing is, car is a necessity. It's, I mean, you need to drive for independence and whatnot. It's not a luxury or anything. You need to drive for all the steps, and you envision yourself driving, going to work, or just going here and there and all this stuff. The moment you get rejected from the license, I'm like, okay, what next? How do I manage myself? How do I navigate myself? Right? Everybody's driving. There's so many things. You try to mix up everything rather than the objective, right? You get into more subjective area than the objective, right? I literally cried. I did cry.
Mhm.
And thankfully, I did speak to my wife. I mean, I have a lot of support from my wife. I mean, I knew her before my marriage too, for
Right.
many years. She's like, "That's okay, no worries. I'm here, right? Don't worry. Don't take too much into your heart. We'll
Mhm.
figure out, right?" But again, I did cry. I mean, it was there in my heart for many days.
Yeah, yeah, I think you hit on it too, right? There's so much that happens
Yeah,
and yeah, eventually you figure it out and you adapt, but like I don't think people actually understand the gravity of not being able to hold a valid driver's license. And
right.
it's something that I hear time and time again. I obviously work with a lot of people through CNIB that have low vision and can't drive and myself included. And it's one of the most gut wrenching things because we drive everywhere since we're like 16 years old. You go and get your license, and then yeah, when you live in an area, you need your license. Like you need a car, you need to be able to get from here and there. Yeah, there's public transportation, there's Uber now, there's taxi, there's Handy Dart, but that's not the point. The point is that you physically cannot drive because you have this condition and whatever that condition is, right? There's so many people that have other ailments, other chronic health conditions that are limiting them from driving. We're obviously speaking from the vision aspect of it, but I really want people to understand a lot of times, and I've shared this story many times, but when I lost my license and even around before the time I did, people kept saying, well, the future is bright. Like AI was already in the talks. This was also 7 years ago. There'll be self driving cars. It could be worse. You can just take an Uber or take a taxi or take the bus. And those comments, I know they weren't intentional, but they hurt because it was dismissing the grief. Like we're actually aching with the grief. We're in so much sorrow because we've lost one of our senses and we're not able to do something. And so it's just really hard. And here we are both now, and we've, navigated that and found different means of transportation and what have you, but it still sucks. I would even argue that I'm pretty sure you probably wish you had your license, that you could drive and go places and not having to rely on other people and all that, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I would wish I can rent some vision for a couple of hours.
You wish what,
Right.
sorry?
The vision for a couple of hours. Oh, can I borrow your
Oh,
vision for 2 hours? I'll go here and there.
yeah, like these things are so, it's funny because I think humor is also necessary. So I love that you bring that forward, Chandra.
I
But
do a lot. I do a lot in my daily life, Sarah.
I love that. And yeah, I love that. I think that's why we connect so well too. I think you bring that out in me because I can be very sad. I can be very emotional. I'm very in my grief. Like I cry a lot. And so I've come a long ways, but I'm naturally just like that. My instinct is to cry. My instinct is to get upset. Recently, it's been anger and what have you. But yeah, the humor is, what's funny is a lot of people, not everyone, because not everyone's there yet. And it's okay. But a lot of people do say like humor is funny. They'll make jokes about their vision or about their cane. And I've heard that. And it's honestly refreshing. Like, I
Yeah.
think humor just makes things a lot lighter and fun, and you kind of have to do laugh about it because you have no other choice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do a lot of humor when my daughter is around. I just so
Um,
I want to touch up on that when you say I think I didn't answer it. So yeah, the first one is the driver's license. Everything my vision was progressive. I knew what's happening, right? I used to get angry, frustrated, but again, it all happened about 7 or 8 years ago, where things started getting weird. I mean, the thing is, there's a lot of mess in the kitchen. I cook, like I said, I cook. I've been doing a lot of mess in the kitchen. I mean, which I always do,
mhm,
right? So my saying is, I'm good at making mess. I'm good at cleaning the mess. But again, I'm making more mess than cleaning up stuff. And I've been dropping these glasses, the tumblers, and it's just weird. I mean, I didn't know when I pour something, the milk in the container, I was just pouring outside the container, and it's frustrating. And I started bumping into things, getting into accidents, right? Bumping stuff. And that's when I got frustrated. I didn't know what's happening, but not that I didn't know. I knew that it could be the vision loss, but again, the way it's happening, it saddened me a lot. Thanks to my support system, my wife, my family, I have a lot of support system. They somehow just pulled me up, and again, I accepted when I reached out to the specialist. as- They they asked me to just reach out to CNIB, and I reached out to CNIB. Thanks to CNIB's amazing organization. There's a lot of support,
mhm, of
and
course. I'm biased. We're both biased, but they are honestly, truly such a great organization, and it changed and saved me in a lot of ways too. And I know it's been a great help for you as well. So you hit on my next question where like, how did your day-to-day life begin to change? And then what did you used to do effortlessly and that became challenging? And so you just shared all that, right? The cooking, the cleaning, all of that day-to-day stuff that people don't really recognize. Like when I say it impacts every single area of your life, it really does.
yes.
Mhm.
And it's difficult in reading the emails and not reading, and accessing the social media, watching and whatnot too, right? And even at work, I had difficulty. I didn't know what to mention. I mean, I have no idea what it is. That's when I reached out to CNIB and have all the resources. That's when I started using this assistive technology tools.
Yeah,
I used Zoom Text at one point, but like I said, Zoom Text was helping me when I had a little bit of central vision. But after a couple of years, when I lost central vision, I had to switch to another tool called JAWS,
right.
Transfer Job Access with Speech. What it does is it just reads out what's on your screen. So it gives a audio representation of what you see on the screen.
Right. So yeah,
And
for people, so just for people who are listening, so what Chandra is sharing is the assistive technology that he uses. So the first one you said was you used to use, what was the first one, did you say, Chandra?
it's a Zoom text, so it magnifies what you're seeing on the screen. It
Right.
just increases the resolution, and
Okay, so you
so if
used
you
to use that at the beginning, and then because the progression of your condition and you started losing more vision, you had to transition into JAWS, correct?
correct. So zoom text is for people, I mean, who have low vision, who has some central vision, right? You can see something on the screen. You can magnify, use magnifiers and stuff. It
Hmm.
just magnifies what's on the screen. But since I lost the central vision, right, I do not have, regardless how much ever you zoom, you would not make out what's on the screen.
Right.
So you have to translate that into an audio. That's where this tool called Job Access with Speech, right? It helps. It actually translates the visual thing into the audio aspect.
Can you tell that works a little bit? Give us an example of how that works. I know you use that for your work, and then also you use it, I'm assuming you use it for your phone too. So can you just give us an example of
Sure.
what that
Yeah, for JAWS is something which works well on this Windows operating system on your laptops and desktops, which is Windows based. What it does is if you have to read an email, or if you want to send an email, it uses certain shortcuts. So these are basically Windows based shortcuts, right? For example, you want to open an email, right? You go to you navigate. There's no use of mouse. You don't use mouse at all. It's
Okay.
all keyboard based, right? You just navigate it up and down arrow, right? You click on it, double click, and then open an email. And if you want a new email, you use Control N, you type it. Whatever you type, it reads out for you, right?
How is it like you said you're using the keyboard, of course, right? So is it a little bit of memorization
Correct, correct.
of like
It's a
where
very,
the
very good
keypads
question.
are, but how do you
Very,
what you're clicking on? Is it
yeah.
told back
So,
to you?
yeah, yeah. So basically, you have to get used to the keyboard layout.
Right.
So you need to know you have the standard keyboard, right? The layout is the American
Right.
standard layout, right?
Yeah.
And most of the keyboards, yeah, of course, with desktop, you have this number keyboards on one side, and laptop and desktop has a different additional keys.
Right.
Once you get familiarized with it, I mean, you'll know what keys to press. And once you start using it, it's like a muscle memory. That's it.
But then once you
And
press it, is your screen talking to you then the whole time?
it does, it does.
Okay.
I mean, for other people, it's annoying, but again, you get used to it,
Right.
and sometimes you know what to skip, right? You can hush the speech with some shortcuts.
Okay. Yeah. What about your
And
phone? When you're using your phone in your personal, your day to day, how is that the same process or is that something else?
yeah, so for phone, I use Apple. I used to use Android, but Apple has one of the best accessibility features. Not that I'm marketing Apple or anything. I don't want anybody to come after me legally, right? I
I'm
mean,
an
this is my
Android user, so that's why I'm laughing. And for me, for where I'm at with my vision, the Android actually works great. But they do say Apple is a lot better for accessibility for that.
correct. Yeah, I use VoiceOver. Apple has an inbuilt screen reader called VoiceOver.
Okay.
So I use for phone, I use gestures. I mean, I don't have to see what's on it. It just I can just send a text. For example, if I have to say, send a WhatsApp message to Sara, right? And Siri says, you know what? Okay, what do you want to send? Okay, say hello, Sarah. How are you? And all those things. It sends out. And there's some gestures on the phone, right? You just move your fingers and all this stuff, finger gestures,
Right.
and you can just navigate through it.
Right.
And that's what I use. I always turn my screen curtain on. That means if you're a sighted person, you would see that, you know, I'm weird because all I do is finger movement on the screen with nothing shown on the screen. But for me, I just use a Bluetooth headset and it just translates what I'm doing and here, and I just navigate and send a message and stuff.
So like if you had notifications on your phone, you would just move around your finger and then it would talk to you and say like
Correct.
one new email notification, one WhatsApp notification. That's what it does. That's
Correct.
how you navigate that then.
Correct. You double click or single click or triple click and whatnot on the phone. So it's all gestures. You use it and you navigate. I do use YouTube, but again, it's all audio. And again, like I said, I use my screen curtain on. There's nothing visual for me on it.
Right.
And for people who are, for example, if I commute or if I'm in a store, I don't want people to see what I'm watching or what I'm looking at, right? So I just use a screen curtain on and I just listen or hear and say words and what have to.
Mhm.
And I use dictate. I mean, if you have to, sometimes I type, but sometimes I dictate. I mean, you have to send an email. I just dictate on the email and I send it out.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I find it so even now like so interesting and with that like I'm curious, did you have at the beginning, you're obviously now very familiar like you said, you kind of said muscle memory, you've been doing this for a long time. Could you share with us like was there some maybe resistance or some challenges at the beginning in learning how to use assistive technology?
Yeah, yeah, of course. This resistance and adapting it's to assistive technologies always there because for the 40 years or so in my life, I got used to seeing things, navigating stuff. Now, out of nowhere, you can't see, but you still tend to see something or try to see hard, right, to navigate, and that adds to frustration. You know, sometimes it just you get angry, frustrated, but it just took me a while to accept that, you know, to have to come up because I knew. I mean, I remember my dad saying that, you know, you have to adapt to these things. Use get into the iPhone because, like I said, I always look up at my brother. I mean, he uses all this stuff, so things have been easy for me, but when he says something, I wouldn't get what he's trying to say because I was not there yet, right? I would practice, But again, as the human nature, sometimes it's too hard for you to understand. You try to see something and click on things.
Hmm.
But the day I lost this vision, right?
Hmm.
The central vision and stuff, then I realized, okay, what my brother was saying, and and if I had questions, I would ask him, right? Then I would just get into YouTube and try to get some aspects. And of course, there's so many shortcuts and gestures you would not memorize. I think the most common things is what you do on a daily basis is what is like a muscle memory, and
Right.
you get into the brain.
Right.
But there's so many things.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I myself, like, that's what I always say to you, Chandra, like, you inspire me so much because I do have a lot of resistance, like a lot for certain things. But that's why I'm curious because I'm sure this can apply to listeners, right, who are watching this or listening to this who have other limitations and restrictions. And so even if you're listening and you don't have vision loss, maybe it applies to you, but in a different context, is that resistance and challenge. And you did say, like, you kind of have to accept it like at some point because it's actually going to be better for you and you're going to realize that over time life is actually a lot more easier when you just accept and you learn to adapt because otherwise you're going to be stuck in that resistance and the only way out of that is through that. And so you said you just learned how to accept it. Was there anything that you could provide for listeners? Like what did help you accept that? Was it just you mentioned your brother who also is you said living a very great life and he uses assistive technology, has a really good career and stuff. Was that a big catalyst for you, like a motivation for you?
Yeah, he's been a motivation all along, Sarah. When I don't know how he does it, because we both have a different personality. I'm like the outdoor person, very stubborn, not that calm. I want to do what I want to do. That's it, regardless. But certain ways, in certain ways. Now the things which I want to do in that certain way, if it's not happening, it was frustrating. At the same time, like I said, I'm not a person who just sit in a corner, cry. I want to do it regardless, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I just picked up all this stuff.
Right.
And things have changed. I mean, for example, if somebody is sending a WhatsApp message or a message, I want to read, right? But if I cannot read what it is, what do I do? I mean, either I have to take help from my family member,
Mm-hmm.
right? Have them read out to me, or they have to have them send the text response. But that's not practical for me, right? For anybody in that matter, right?
Right.
So you
Yeah.
have to start somewhere. So the moment I learned, things have been so easy. I don't have to tell people that I'm visually impaired, but I'm sending. But again, the thing is, you can just keep that visual impairment or the disability factor aside and focus on what you're doing, the objective. I mean, communication, yes, right? The day-to-day routine gets easier by adapting to all this technologies. It's like these are assistive technologies, but again, you have to adapt because, like I said, it's not one size fits all, right? Just because it's working for me doesn't mean that it works for everybody. You
Right.
have to know what works for you. There are tools out there, explore, and life gets easier.
Mm-hmm.
That's from my experience, I would
Yeah,
say.
thank you for sharing that. I think that's going to help a lot of people. Myself, again, I include myself in that because I do wallow. I do sit in that. And I mean, I think it's okay to do that a little bit, but at some point you got to get yourself out of that. And the only person that can get yourself out of that is you. You can have all the support, you can have the greatest family and friends and, even colleagues if, you have a great support system at work. But in the end of the day, no one's you. And you're the only one that can get out of that. And you're the only one that can, adapt because no one can do that physically for you. And so I think that's really important is to like take from what Chandra just shared and just our conversation is that, right? And I know it sucks. I know it's heavy. Like I get it. I feel you, right? Like I get the grief of it all. There's so much grief and loss in that. And Chandra, of course, that's a big part of the work that I do is grief and loss. And counseling and coaching and just the education piece on that. And that's very important where I'm not dismissing that at all, but I do believe that at some point we have to just lean into that. It's a both and, right? I always talk about this, Chandra. Maybe I've shared it with you. It's like life is a both and, right? We can feel the grief, we can feel the sadness, we can feel like the like the anger, and like this actually really sucks, right? And at the same time, we can feel joyful, we can feel motivated, we can lean into like the resources, and especially when with assistive technology, it has come so far. And I know there's pros and cons with technology. I feel that a lot of times, like I think it's too much, and at the same time it's helping us. Like if there wasn't assistive technology and it wasn't advanced where it is now in 2025 versus where it was say when you were in India in the 1990s, like night and day difference. You wouldn't be able to communicate, you wouldn't be able to, you know, do the job that you're doing as effectively and efficiently as you are without it. So it is actually a really great tool if we allow it, and we need to allow it. I want to get into the misconceptions, Chandra, because I think that's such a big one, right? You know how we're talking about, I think a lot of people think vision loss is black or white. You're either blind or you're not blind. And so, what would you say are some of the most common and biggest misconceptions when it comes to living with sight loss? So, not just your diagnosis or your condition, but obviously speak to what you've noticed, but as general as a whole, like what do people or society believe to be true versus what it actually is in reality to live with sight loss?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, when you try to tell people that you're blind or visual, the first thing they put themselves, they paint you as you have to wear dark glasses, you have to have a cane, you should not be happy, right? You
Yeah.
should be sad, you should be sorrow, right? That's how they paint. When I talk to people that are visually impaired, first of all, they would not believe. And I've seen all these things, and you know, they tried sometimes the way they react or the way they respond is as if I'm tricking them. I'm trying to just fake them that I'm not able to see. This happened to me.
Sorry, say
I
that
don't know if
again. I missed that. Say that again.
sometimes when I talk to them, when I tell them, you know, I can't see, I'm visually impaired and all this stuff, and I have this confidence, I can't see, I'm
Mhm.
visually impaired. Can you do this for me, right? As a service, they think that I'm faking, right? Yeah, I'm too lazy to do it. This happened to me in I don't know one of the airports, or I don't know if I told you. I travel. I mean, I've been traveling when I want to meet my friends.
Mm,
Been to Costa Rica and even from Sridharyam, right?
yeah.
I travel myself in the airport. But I think I don't know if it's in Hyderabad or someplace. We have this ground staff. I have this services called blind services when I
Hmm.
travel, and obviously I was not using white cane back then, and I told the person that you know what, I need services. I mean, there's somebody who was assisting me and was walking, and this guy wouldn't believe that I can see. The way he was acting, I mean, it requires a lot of training for those guys. So I think
Hmm.
that's what they stick out as a blind person. They want to see the person carry a cane. I
Right.
can understand. But the kind of service or the reaction, I don't want to use the word attitude. It's negative in per se. But again, um, he wouldn't believe that I'm not able to see. He would just walk in front of me. I got into an accident a couple of times during that service
Mm.
in the airport, right?
That's
Um,
terrible.
yeah, because people think that if you can't see, you have to wear the dark glasses,
Hmm.
you have to have a cane. That's it. There's nothing you can see. There's a lot of misconception. I keep telling my friends too. They sometimes they get surprised when I say that I cooked right this meal and I cooked this. They
Right.
said, "Can you cook?" So what do you see? How do you see the spices? I mean, what kind of spice do you use? What do you do the coloration and all this stuff? Then when I say, you know, I use this app called Seeing AI, it reads out the spice for me. Then I'm like, no way, right?
Hmm.
So it's interesting. That's where I just add humor to my life,
Yeah.
right? I try to have this funny conversation, right?
Yeah.
Said seeing vision is a spectrum.
For
Not
sure.
like
I'm so sorry you did share that with me about that experience at the airport. That is terrible. And yeah, I think, like you said too, I mean, I think there are people that are just ignorant, they're rude, and they just have some sort of attitude. I do believe that there's people like that everywhere. However, I think a lot of it also is the miseducation, right? Like,
correct.
if you don't know, you don't know. Like, I don't know a lot about other ailments or other conditions because it's not in my life, right? And
Right.
so, yeah, I think there's so many. So just for people who are listening like that, right? Like you don't need to have dark colored sunglasses on. You don't need to carry a cane to be blind or legally blind. Vision loss is not black or white. It's not like you're either blind or you have full sight. Chandra and I are very good examples of that. Both of us are not legally blind. Both of us have very low vision. I have more vision than Chandra does, but I still have lack of peripheral vision. My night vision is still very poor. Like that. Cooking, you hit on another one good on Chandra. Like people think you can't still be independent when you have vision loss, and you're a good
Right.
example of that. And we won't get into all of it because there's so much technology, and that's where CNIB has such good resources. They run programs on all different things, like how to put your clothes on, how to label your clothes, how to cook, how to identify ingredients, how to read ingredients or expiry dates. There's so many gadgets at the CNIB store, even with, and this is all stuff that's new to me. And I started learning over the last, I don't know, like 7+ years when I started going to CNIB. It's like a gadget that when you're pouring hot water or something in the cup, it like tells you like temperature. Yeah, there's a lot of things. So my point here is that you can still be independent. There's people that are blind that do their makeup like fully. What else are the misconceptions? Is there anything else that's popping up to you? Oh, another one, it's kind of a funny one, is people will say, well, can't you just get better glasses? And
Yeah.
it's like, well, no, you can't, because like you said, no amount of, even with the Zoom text, like you were sharing, right? No amount, no matter how big it is, if you're having deficit and there's, no vision there, it doesn't matter how big it is. So
Correct.
that's another one. People also think like if you're blind or have low vision that you're also deaf. I've also heard that before. Have you experienced that, Chandra?
Yeah, so they're all so much. Just because you're visually impaired doesn't mean that you can have this hearing impairment too. The other question, other common point which people ask me in the past is, oh, why don't you do the eye transplant? Right? There's
You
so
get that
much.
asked a lot.
Yeah. So I literally have to explain to the, especially my condition is, I would just give an example. You have a DSLR, the camera, and eye replacement means changing the lens. But my condition, my situation is not something with the lens. It's in the actual photoreceptors itself.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how many times you change the lens, how big the lens is, the vision will not change.
Yeah.
There's nothing transplantation you can do in the retina yet, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's so true too. But even there's no correlation. Yeah. Someone might be deaf and be blind at the same time, but there's no correlation that, oh, because we're blind or have low vision, that hearing is impaired. Another one that comes through a lot in my workshops is people think all of a sudden you have special powers, and somehow you have special powers because you can't see, like your hearing is a lot better, or people will start talking really loud. Clients have shared with me, because like I'll mention I'm blind or low vision and they'll start talking really loud, and then the client's like, well, my hearing's not impaired. With the special powers, I don't think it's a special power by any means. I think it's really what it comes down to is adapting. So for me, I laugh because I feel like my touch has heightened since I've lost my vision. And a prime example I remember is like I was living at my parents at the time and in the basement, and it was dark and I couldn't find like the light switch. And so what did I do? I used the walls to
Yeah.
maneuver. Like I knew the lay of my land, right? I lived there. So I knew where, like the setting of my place. And so I would use touch. So I would use
Right.
touch for that. And I remember laughing to myself at that time, like my touch is heightened, but it's just you're learning to adapt. You're learning to see without seeing with your eyes. And same
Right.
thing with like audiobooks, right? It's a good example. You're reading, but you're reading with your ears, not your eyes. And
Right.
so I think that's also another thing that people think, right? And even driving, I think is another one, is people think, well, if you have low vision, you're blind, like you can't drive, but that's not true. Like if you can compensate, like for myself, for anyone who's listening and, doesn't really know, it doesn't matter what condition you have, but if you know that you have some sort of medical condition that's limiting you from driving, so with us, it's the vision. And so my peripheral vision doesn't meet the requirements. So I'm technically not allowed to drive, but you can go through testing. It's called the Functional Driving Evaluation, FDE. And again, this isn't just for vision loss, it's for anyone with a medical condition that's limiting them from driving. And if you can go through this testing, they do a whole in clinic testing. So they test you on all different levels, like your vision, of course, and then also your hands and your movement, because some people might have issues with that. You obviously need to have movement and be able to steer your wheel and all that. But if you can pass the in clinic, that part, and then the road test, and you can compensate for the lack of your vision or whatever limitations you have, and you pass that and you can demonstrate that you are a safe driver, you can actually drive again. And so for me, Chandra, I don't know if how much of that you know, but that's how I drive. I lost my license, and technically I'm not medically allowed to drive because my peripheral vision is not doesn't meet the parameters. But I've gone through testing and I've passed the testing, and my road test, like for me, I can compensate with the lack of peripheral vision with shoulder checks.
Right.
So, and I actually passed my road test 100%. I have no issue because I can, like, turn my head and I can do that. So, that there's just so many different things. And again, if you're not in it, you wouldn't know that. I had no idea that was even an option. When I first lost my license in 2018, the doctor had mentioned it, but I was so distraught. I wasn't even there yet. But then a couple of years later, once I started healing and going through therapy and working through all the stuff and learning to adapt, I was then ready. And now I have my license, but basically they're going to test me every couple of years and what have you. But yeah,
Right.
just so many misconceptions. And I just thought that was a really important one because you're such a good example of that too, right? Like you're working, you have a family, you're using your devices, like you're running, like you're doing all of that. I want to get into the cane because I think the cane is also a big one. I know you've touched on that. Can you talk about like for listeners who aren't familiar, we talked about this too with the cane. You don't actually need a cane if you're low vision or blind. So, for listeners who aren't familiar, can you explain what the cane is, what it does, and how it actually helps someone with low vision and navigate the world to their day to day life?
Sure, yeah. So I'm just showing the cane, the folded version of the cane for
Oh,
the
you
users.
have
It's
it. I love that.
yeah. So this is the cane I use. It's about 58-inch. It's folded right now. I think it's folded 4 or 5 times to just get into the where I can put in a bag.
Right.
It has a spear tip. I started using cane since last year because, like I said, I always want to be outside, travel, walk, downtown person.
Mhm.
So when I use public transportation, the trains and stuff, I started bumping into people. I mean, as the vision started getting low, right? I started bumping into people, bumping into the things, objects. So it's used to be very scary sometimes because I have to walk by the tracks. The last thing I want to happen is getting on the tracks and get myself killed, right?
Right.
So yeah, and every time I walk, I have to start apologizing to people. Sorry, 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 right?
Right.
Because that didn't happen for the last few years. It just happened recently, the last 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had to pick up the cane, and then yeah, holding the cane for the first time was difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
The very fact that I have to, I can envision myself with the cane was not that easy. Imagining myself with the cane was not easy. But again, the moment I said, I'll start using a cane, I started loving it. It's a freedom. I mean, it's
What
like a good,
Sorry, I'm
yeah.
just gonna pause you before you go on with, the transformation part of that is what was it about using the cane that you were resistant to? Like, what were some of those thoughts that were coming through when you were at the very beginning of that?
Yeah, so it's the mental block, Sarah. I don't know. It could be a mental block that no, you cannot see yourself, or for some reason, um, it's hard to see yourself with the cane,
Mhm,
right? Not there's nothing wrong with the cane, right? I started loving. I carry the cane every time wherever I go right now, right?
mhm,
Even when I go with my family, I take the cane just in case. But it's the mental block. It's just that I felt sad that I am in this situation that now I'm holding the cane,
mhm.
right? Nothing wrong. It's just a mental block. Again, it's accepting myself.
Yeah,
The day I accepted, I reached out to CNIB and I have the great instructor, right? And the first question I was asked is, what is your vision condition? All this stuff, whether I qualify for that.
mhm.
Was done this assessment, and they asked me, okay, where do you want to train yourself,
Right,
right? I said downtown Toronto. I'm like, what? Right? Then I said, yeah, that's where I travel. I mean, work or meet people, my friends, and all these guys,
right.
right? All this, I need Toronto, right? That's the most, the common place I want to use this assistance for. And then I asked the person, why did you ask this question? I said, yeah, people who initially asked want to train, they didn't want to train in the busiest place.
Mhm.
And they would train near their house or the place where it's quiet and not that busy. I said, for me, it doesn't make sense. I
Right.
want to train myself in a place where, I normally go to, right?
Right.
So it took me about 8 or 9 uh, or 10 sessions, maybe. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I started using cane and I'm started loving it. I mean, now I have this 58-inch, right? It's part of the extension of my body.
Mhm.
I walk, didn't have to say sorry to anybody, right?
Mhm.
It's other way around. People just see, bump into me, they say, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
as the things changed. And it gives you a lot of independence. Safety, number one, right? And it's confident. You just walk with confidence. It's amazing. I'm loving it.
Yeah, you're just so inspiring. And I'm not surprised because I know just who you are about how you're like, yeah, I want to go downtown. It makes sense, right? Like what you're sharing. If that's where I'm going to be and that's where I'm going to go to meet my friends and, be social, like why
Yeah,
wouldn't I learn in a place that I'm going to go? But I will
right.
be honest, I would probably be hesitant to do that. Like I think that's why they probably ask that. So I get both sides of it. I get why you were kind of shocked, like, why are you asking me that? But also, I would be terrified, and I will have to be very transparent. Like, I'm terrified of that. And like the cane and using it, I don't use one right now. I don't really need to use one right now. But honestly, and like, I don't think I've ever really shared this, but it's something that came up like many years ago when I first started doing therapy around this, about the cane. And there's a lot of resistance. At that time, my vision wasn't as bad as it is now. And I was just like, what is it? The therapist was asking me a question like, what is it? And she had asked me something that really was so pivotal. And I want to share that because it really put perspective onto this. But she's like, well, if you broke your leg and you had to have a cast, maybe you had to sit in a wheelchair for a little bit to wheel around while your leg healed. Like, would you do that? And I said, it was like an automatic, almost like, well, yeah, like, duh, kind of response. Like, yeah, you break your leg, you break your arm, you get a cast and you go on about life. And so she goes, well, that's an aid. Like, a cast is essentially an aid to help you, to support you, to rebuild your bones. And she's like, what's the difference with a cane? Like the cane is also an aid. It's there to support you. And I froze. Like I didn't know the answer to that question because she's like, well, basically what she was like, isn't that the same thing? It's an aid is an aid. So why is it different that with the cast you'd like, yeah, sure. And then with the cane, obviously it was so much deeper than that. And I think it's like, I think the grief and loss around like, I have to use this. And maybe the cast example is like it's temporary and it's so common, like everyone does that, but not everyone has vision loss. And like I'm definitely afraid of what people are going to think, or like what would that mean about me if I was walking around society and at work and what have you with the cane. Like that would make me mean that I'm different. And so for me, that's a lot of it. And you inspire me so much, Chandra, because one day maybe I will need that, but I'm not there. And I have a lot of anger and resistance around that. I find that very touching for you to share your story.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much freedom. When you get used to the freedom, right, you
Yeah.
have to take advantage of it. And like you said, right, I mean, the social stigma of what people would think and the resistance,
Mhm,
for me, I'm like, okay, people are too busy to think about you, right?
mhm, mhm.
I tell all the time to myself, I talk to myself a lot, Sarah,
Yeah.
right?
I
I say to myself, people are too busy to think about you. First of all, I never paid attention to what people would think. It's about me, my safety, my family, right?
Mhm,
What's good for me,
mhm.
right? Is what I would normally think. That's my personality. But again, I think when the time comes, I think you have to adapt to make your life easy
Yeah.
and people make people life easy around you.
For sure, and that safety thing is something else I wanna pull out of that too, is so important, right? Like, is it either your image, quote unquote, or is it your safety? Because there's a lot of people that have had falls, that have had injuries. Someone at CNIB actually shares this story all the time, and she's such a big advocate for the cane or the dog or something because she, I think, maybe was resistant at the beginning or just didn't have the cane, and she actually fell. really badly. Until this day, she said her back is not the same because I think she fell down the stairs and she wasn't using the cane or anything. And so it is a safety thing. And so we have to get past that image part of it because your safety is more important than your image. And like you said, no one's talking about you, no one's thinking about you. It's our own insecurities, it's our own self judgment. And honestly, I aspire to have your confidence and to be like, just a positive mindset you have around it because in the end of the day, again, there's no choice. You kind of have to, right? And so it makes it a lot easier for yourself mentally, emotionally, physically when you can accept basically that you need the support and then know it's a safety thing. Like you said, you walk through tracks all the time. If you don't have the cane, you can end up dead. Like that's the
Right.
reality of the situation if you look at it.
Correct.
Yeah. Oh man, I know I've heard this, but even sharing that, it's just such big conversations. Like most people don't have these and they're so hard, like so hard. But I really appreciate you sharing and being vulnerable. Okay, let's move to family, kind of moving into more of like the transition phase a little bit, but you did say that you have a beautiful wife, you have two kids, and you did mention you met your wife prior to the diagnosis, correct? You said in India?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I was curious about that because this is something I also struggle with because I'm single, but um is wondering is that going to be an issue? Again, going back to the self-judgment, the insecurities. I don't have it so much now. I've come a long ways, but a part of me still wonders, is someone going to accept me for who I am? And like you're a living proof that yes, regardless of that. I'm just curious of how did that relationship, like those early years of your relationship, how was that?
Yeah. It's my wife. She is a strong person, Sarah. She's I don't know. I haven't seen anybody who's as strong as her. You just say you want to drive to maybe Chicago tonight. She would say, "Sure. What time?"
Love
Right?
that.
Yeah. She's always that kind of person. And in fact, the entire family, my wife's family is like that. And we have known that we were actually family friends. So that's how when these things happen, I try to explain to her, right, with the hope that she would say, "Nope, sorry, end of our story," right? But I think it's only fair for me to just mention what I go through, right? And she also knows what my brother's situation is. But again, I think she accepted who I was and who I am, right?
So you already knew her before like anything really progressed with your vision.
Right.
Okay. Were you ever afraid that maybe, she wouldn't accept you based off your diagnosis and everything?
Was, to be honest, yes. Yeah. Because, but the other thing is, I didn't know where this diagnosis would lead me to. There's no way I would, because my brother's situation at that time was not that serious either. When I looked at the articles, I mean, all they said was the RP, the retinitis pigmentosa, would not lead to total blindness or stuff. But again, she accepted it, and it did not take much time. She said, "No way, we are having this discussion. Let's move on, right?" And that's it.
Really
And
sweet.
yeah,
Yeah, that gives me hope. And again, there's something I think we all, think about, whether it's vision loss or not. Sometimes I think we let that define us, right? And we think that no one's going to accept that, but the right person will. And, I just love that you have such a great support system, and even with your kids as well. That's really great.
and the
Um,
other thing, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The just to on the same topic, not see the loss is a loss. I mean, you speak a lot about loss, and again, I think the previous speaker, Tara, you guys spent a lot of time on the loss. Just because you went through vision loss, doesn't mean that people would focus on that. The person you might or meet a person who had gone through a different kind of loss, and the person would understand what loss means, right? And you can get harmonious, right? You can just get together and all this stuff. You don't have to just focus on vision loss itself, right?
right.
You just say it's a loss, that's it. You'll find a person who understand what loss means, be it a loss of parent or loss of anything, right? Definitely meet the right person. That's
That's
what I believed. Yeah.
so true. And I love that you pointed that out because, yeah, loss is loss, right? People can understand profound loss, the gravity of it, whether it's a physical loss, like your senses, or whether, like when I had Tara on, she's lost both of her parents within 6 months of each other. She knows profound loss in a very different way than I've experienced it, but both of our losses are still profound. And so I think, yeah, that's just really important. And I've come there now. I'm a lot more confident. Like if you had met me, I don't know, 7 years ago, and even year by year, I feel my confidence is building. Even if I'm going on dates or if I'm chatting with someone or anything, I'm very comfortable saying, like, can we go during the day because I can't drive at night? It's a long story, not a texting conversation, but I'd love to share it with you in person. So I'm a lot more comfortable. But like 7 years ago, I know I was crippled by it. I was like, there's no way. And because I was still, I think, so in it myself. I'm
Right.
not so much so in it. And now I'm like, you know what? Like, if no one's going to accept that, then that's not the right person. I don't want to be with someone who's going to not have the capacity to hold that space. Okay, let's talk about Sri Daryam because that was, I don't know, I talk about it a lot. I love it. And I coincidentally, ironically enough, someone just messaged me a couple of days ago. A friend of mine had a client who's lost a lot of vision, and so she was talking to them. She knows my story. She knows I went to India, and so she had messaged me, asked me the name of the hospital that I went to, and then her client messaged me and wanted to know. And coincidentally enough for them, they were also referred to Sri Daryam. And then I told them that that's where I went, and they're like, "Oh, okay, there must be something here." I talk about it. I have really good things to say about Sri Daryam. I don't think I have anything really negative to say. But what was that like for you? Because obviously that's where we met. People know my experience and my journey through it. And but how did you navigate that? And you were also by yourself for the last part of it. So when I got to Sri Daryam, you left a couple of days later, I think. And so,
Yes.
do you want to, if anything, you feel that you want to share about the hospital? Was it good for you? Was it not good? Anything about that time when we were together?
Sure, yeah, coming back to Sridhar, it's my wife. I mean, remember the crazies last 7 years, the things which I was going through. It's my wife who just looked into this because there's no cure for us in terms of the current cure. So then I was just thinking, what is the other aspect? Because my goal is to make sure, we just have to procrastinate the progression,
Yeah.
right? Because it's going down the hill so fast.
Hmm.
I can see that, and my wife could see that too. Then she found out, she did some research and she found Sridharyam.
Hmm.
And then I think when we visited last year was when I met you. I think the previous year also, 23, when I went to visit India, that's when I was recommended and was admitted. I mean, my wife came with me. She registered me and she just stayed that night. And I think the next day she left. I loved it because first of all, it just gave me an opportunity to experience myself, right? It's
Hmm.
a beautiful, first of all, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And the structure, the medication, everything. It's so good that I was mentally calm and in a happier space. That's what I felt
Mm.
first time because I was curious as to what kind of medication it is. What is this, the eye drops,
Mhm.
right? The ghee, the medicated
Yeah.
ghee, the food and whatnot, the surroundings, right?
Yeah.
The villas we were in and all this stuff. And the doctors were very professional. We talk about Sri Daryam, the naturopaths and Ayurvedic, they are trained professionals. The eye specialists, they know what's going on scientifically and they have the records and what this means, RP means,
Yeah.
right?
They're
So that
very good.
I would have left the hospital if I had heard the person, the eye specialist or the doctor said that we would revert this condition. I was ready to do that. But the moment I heard the doctor say that there's nothing, we cannot revert it, but we would try to procrastinate the progression. This is only so much we can do. So the moment I heard that, then I was like, okay, I'm in the right place,
Hmm.
right? Any false, whatever you want to give.
Advertisement. Sorry, I'm just gonna butt in. I share
Think,
about that a lot too. They've
correct,
never overpromised. They've
right,
never been like, we're gonna cure you and your vision's gonna all come back and you're gonna be 2020. And they've
right,
never done that. I've been there 3 times now. And I asked them that this last time because I had high hopes, right? I mean, I think it's okay to have hopes, but also come back to reality. Is they've never overpromised. And that's one thing you can get from them. They're not just there to make money. It's a very spiritual, soulful. You can just feel that. Like you said, the landscape, the nature aspect of it. They're very well trained doctors. They've been doing this, it's been in their family for centuries and
right.
it's just evolved. And so I felt that too. And they said, likely what you've lost, the damage is done. But what we can do is help to nourish and revitalize the cells and everything, the organs, and to slow the progression as much as we can. And I really value that from an organization, a hospital, a company, or anyone when they're forthcoming, when they're not
Sure.
just luring you in for money and for, whatever, for an image. And that really shows. And I think that makes a difference. You can feel the heart and soul behind what they do, between the nurses, the doctors, even the staff in the kitchen, right, that prepare our meals. It's changed my life. I'm not the same person that I was when I walked in 2019, and it just keeps getting better. And so even the time we were there together, there were so many of it was packed when we went. Every room was full, and we had so much fun in like the dining hall and everything. It's funny, I'm laughing because I was just thinking when I was there in 2024, I told myself, when I come back, I'm gonna start making uttapam at home. And I have never done it, but now I'm like, I need to go to like the Indian store here and make it at home. Do you remember that? I ordered that a lot.
You did. Yeah, I think that's your staple, the go to order, I guess,
There
all
was
the time.
at least some sort of flavor in it because the food did get really repetitive and it
Yeah.
was like the same thing. And I'm very picky. And so that was my main, I think sometimes you even helped me because like I didn't even know what to order.
Right. Yeah, I love the food too because I knew I was there for a reason. I just stuck to the same menu all the 2 weeks throughout. I'm okay with eating the same food
Hmm.
for the rest of my life. I'm that kind of person. I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
But it's the entire experience was good, Sarah.
Yeah.
Your point, I felt so serene. I was in my own Zen space.
Hmm.
The same, the morning walks around the pool, right?
Yeah.
So nice. Thought that helped mentally and also with the medications they give. All right. I think their fundamental, the foundation, what causes the ailments, right?
Mhm.
I believed in them
Yeah.
and the conviction is there.
Yeah.
So I think I was happy.
For
The two
sure.
visits I
Yeah, and that's the thing about alternative treatment, holistic health, Ayurvedic treatment is they get to the root cause and they're giving you all natural stuff. It's all
yeah,
grown there. There's no chemicals, no synthetics. It's so pure and it's catering to all the different organs in our body. It's such a great place. If you're listening and you have some sort of visual impairment, I highly, highly encourage people to look into it. If you're curious about more information, you can always reach out to me. I would be happy to give you more information and share my experience. I loved speaking to it. And if I can help anyone, again, even if it can maybe not cure you fully, but there are stories, mind you, people have shared stories that have gotten their vision back. I heard so many stories the first time I went, the second time I went, that there was even kids that go there. And I think one of the kids had no vision and wasn't really talking. He was very just to himself. And by the end of the 3 weeks, he started to get vision in his eyes and he started to speak. Like it heals you on a mind, body, spirit level, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And so highly, highly recommend checking out. And again, I'm always open to having conversation about it and sharing more details about it because I know it can be a lot to go here, especially from Canada, going all the way to India. It's in the south of India. So there's a lot. So grateful for that and so grateful for you, Chandra. That was a fun time.
yeah,
Um,
it was.
okay, let's get into your running. This blows my mind, Chandra, every time. I know it's something that you're very passionate about. It's one of your coping mechanisms. It's something that you've picked up, like you mentioned at the beginning of the episode. It's your meditation and medication. I love that so much. And so you run marathons with very limited vision. And so someone who's listening is like, how is he able to run? Like, how is he running marathons if he can't see? So, can you share how you first got into running and what drew you to it?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, I was always active in terms of sports. I just used to spend very little time at home, right? When I was a kid, spend the entire life outside the home. I never liked staying home.
I love that.
Always want to do something, jumping, climb up the walls, jump, play cricket. You name a sport I used to watch. I mean, we used to create our own sport. Doesn't matter what kind of sport it is, right? I always loved that. But as the vision started deteriorating when I came to Canada, when, for example, as a cricket, the ball is out of your visual equity, right? The visual field.
Hmm.
I started quitting that sport because of my own safety, and it's not helping me. The whole idea you play a sport or you pick anything is you want to enjoy it, and it
Right.
keeps you mentally and physically sane. So I picked many sports, but that's not happening. So then, and even the things at home and work, when you get into a stress mode, you want to have this. some kind of activity outside your home or work, right? To just reduce the stress. So then I picked up running when I was traveling in the bus. I met a person. She started running and she started talking about her runs and stuff.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, this is a good thing to pick. And I asked, and I was always a very curious person. Very,
Mhm.
if you say, you know, I'm hiking, I would ask these questions. Okay, where would you hike? What kind of shoes? Right? How
Right.
far? I was always this kind of person, very curious in everything. So I asked this person, how long would you run? What would you? Is there any specific thing you follow? And I started running for 5 kilometers. I think me and my friend back when I was living in my previous home, we started running,
Mhm.
and we both loved running. And I was just curious because running is not for everybody, Sarah, right?
Yeah,
You
it's
would,
not for me.
right, yeah. So I heard that too a lot. Then I'm like, okay, let's see what happens if I just push for 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers. And I enjoyed it. I mean, the more I sweat, I still love sweat. When I sweat, I love it,
Yeah. Oh,
especially
yeah. It
physical.
feels so good.
Yeah. So then, since this was like a, when was it? Back in 2010 or something, or 2011. And ever since, I never stopped. I mean, I never looked at any other sport because every sport I looked at, I was having difficulty even focusing on the ball or, you know, anything. So I used to ball, I used to go for bowling and stuff. But again, I didn't enjoy that much as I used to enjoy because everything requires some kind of vision.
Right.
So now I picked running, and I know running is in my control. It's not expensive. I didn't have to worry about anybody dropping me and all these things.
Mhm.
So you have to have the senses,
Right.
and especially when you're you know your path, right? It gets into physical. It's like a muscle memory. We
Mhm.
know where the speed bumps are. We know where the potholes are, and that's when I started picking the running. And I think it was like a 2011. And ever since I started running, and I started slow 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, halves, and recently, like you mentioned, I did the full marathon. That's my second in my life. So I do that. I started doing that again. When I had a little bit of vision, I managed to do halves. And when did I say I cannot run by myself without having a guide? Was like 4 or 5 years ago when I was doing a half marathon. That event has both half and full. For full marathoners, I think people have to take a right turn, and for half, you got to make a left turn. I didn't pay attention. I took a right turn, and I ended up doing 36 kilometers to reach the finish line for 21 kilometers. So half marathon is 21.1, full is 42.2 for folks who don't know what this marathons means. But for that particular event, I finished 21.1, ended up doing 36 kilometers. I still laugh at myself,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
So then the next race, I said, okay, now that I experienced this, let me try to focus because I knew it was at 14-kilometer mark. I registered myself again for the same race for the next year. At 14-kilometer mark, I went left, know that I'm gonna end up at 21.1 doing a half marathon. But what happened was I think I almost fell down because like I mentioned that my condition, I couldn't make the depth perception.
Mhm.
Almost couldn't make the walkway and the potholes and all those things.
Right.
I almost fell. Then I said, no, that's not working out for me. Then I was just thinking about myself. I told my wife, she's also active. She's into hiking and all this stuff. And she was doing some research. And I came across an organization called Achilles Canada. Achilles, they actually support people with disability. They support with guide runners. They train you and all this stuff. And I registered myself. And it's a great organization. I'm so thankful for them. I came to know somebody called guide runners. They guide you throughout the course. So I was introduced to, I can't take her name because I didn't take permission,
Yeah, of
but
course,
she's
of course.
first guide runner and she's amazing.
I'm
Um,
curious. So, for people who are listening and they're probably wondering, how are you running then? You're saying it's muscle memory. Can you tell us a little bit, like, how are you running with very low vision? How are you getting around? How do you know if there's cars? How do you know if there's a tree trunk or something on the ground or all of that? For someone who's listening and is trying to understand, like, oh, that's actually possible. Can you talk a little bit about that? So, About that before you had the guide, because you said you were doing that before the guide. So share that, and then after, tell us about what it's been like with the guide, because I know it's been very helpful for you. But yeah, how are you running on your own with not being able to see?
Sure. Yeah, so not to just paint so much smooth, and I don't want to say that I did have great falls. I have a lot of bruises on my legs and stuff,
Mhm.
but I got over it. It's just like, the place where I live, I know the path is. I walk, right? Exactly, you walk through the road many times. You exactly know where the speed bumps are, where the potholes are. And next time you run. And again, there's something that's like a instinct, right? The common sense and instinct I use a lot. I've been training, I've been walking, running for almost 10 years.
That same
Uh,
route.
the same route. So people get bored looking at me. So, as an example, I did my full marathon just on November 2nd. And my part of the training was Sunday's long run. So my longest runs have been 30 kilometers. So imagine me doing 800 meters in the same lap. It's about 3 hours training,
I see.
and it's almost like 38 or 40 times. I don't know. If you ever see me, you would get dizzy, right?
That
Why would
sounds
this?
like it. You were doing that at Sri Dariyam too. Remember around the
Right.
pool? You were doing that. I was doing that too, though, there.
I know, right? So I had many falls because what happens is it's snowing,
Mhm.
when the snow melts and when the spring comes in, the entire track of the path is like all muddy and rustic. They change because of water flow stuff.
Right.
I had few falls last year. So ever since, what happens is the first one, I just walk, try to assess the entire route, right? See what is good, what is not good, and then I start running.
Do you take your cane with you before you start
No, not
running? No?
no. No.
Could you take
Yeah.
your cane, or is that something that you don't really need?
I don't need it because I am familiar with the road, but I still am looking for a cane which helps for the hikes and runs. I don't know if there's any cane which is designed with a wheel or something so smooth and right, which is lighter.
Right.
Because especially for long runs like 30 kilometers, every gram, every ounce matters. I'm still looking for such devices, Sarah. Even for a digital,
Mm,
I hope some kind of invention, innovation,
yeah.
which help the runners.
I'm sure
Yeah.
something will come out for sure. Technology is just getting better and better, especially for accessibility. So
Right.
talk to us about your guides. How has that been like? How is that? And is that for people who are only visually impaired, or is it for anyone who needs a guide?
For anybody who's a guide. I see people with all abilities joining. There's a race called St. Patrick's Day in Toronto. This organization, they're the main organizers of this run.
Mhm.
And you go, you participate, and you have about 5 kilometers and 10 kilometers to walk and run. You see a lot of people on wheelchairs, people with prosthetic legs. They
Mhm.
participate, they run. They have so much support from this organization. It's amazing to see these guys run.
That's the
Yeah, and the guide runner, I think coming back to your question, how does the guide runners work? It's a pure communication, verbal communication. Person who guided me, I think that was her first time too.
Mhm.
She's a running coach herself,
Right.
very passionate, and she wants to do something to the running community. That's where she decided to guide me. And we spoke on phone. I tried to explain to her what I exactly want,
Mhm.
right? The kind of support I needed.
Mhm.
She came to my place. I told her where I train. We did a practice 10 kilometers run.
So
So
are they
basically, when
walking is she walking kind of beside you or
walks, she walks beside me and she wants to basically, it's like assessment. We assess each other. I would assess her communication skills and she would assess my vision, right?
right,
Um, like a speed bumps. If there's a speed bump, she would say, yeah, speed bump coming ahead in
gotcha.
3, 2, 1, right? It's almost like GPS,
Yeah,
right? Making a left, right, 50 meters ahead,
right.
speed bump,
That's
the pylons.
amazing. Like,
Yeah,
wow, like that is so incredible.
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, after having this guide runner, I was so happy that I would not think twice because running was so much for me. Like I said, right, meditation, medication.
Mhm.
Um, every time I'm low, I run. Right, every time I'm
Yeah,
happy, I run. Right,
yeah. Movement
So
is such a big I talk about this all the time. Movement is one of the best healing modalities out there, and we can do it at any time, and you're a prime example of no matter what your limitations, you can still move your body. You can still do those things. It's a learning curve for sure, but you have the ability to do that, and I love that so much for you that you were able to find the guide runner and to be able to do the marathon, and I think you said you're doing another one in spring or something you're
have
thinking.
planning to do 3 next year. I don't know how am I gonna do that.
It's gonna be a lot
All
of
3.
training.
Yeah, so I'm saying this on the camera because once I state it, 90% of the time I keep up my and those are the motivations I need. When I say it out,
I'm
I
gonna
tend to
hold you to it, don't you worry.
I want you to. That's the reason I'm saying that to you, Sarah.
That's
Uh,
funny.
but I'm planning to do 3. I don't know how, and one is in India.
Yeah.
I already spoke to the guide runner. I already found guide runners in India.
Oh, that's so cool. I love
Yeah,
that. I can't wait to hear about that.
yeah. I can't wait to experience that. I'm nervous, but let's see how it goes.
Cool,
I'll
cool.
share the
Well,
yeah.
thank you for sharing that. I love that so much. Again, you're such a huge inspiration. I think anyone who's going to be listening to this is going to be in such awe, inspired by you too. As we close off here, a couple more things. I'm curious. This is running related because I know it's such a big passion of yours, but as a general too, Chandra, what do you wish people understood about pursuing big goals, even with limitations or disabilities?
So what I would say is, I mean, like I said earlier, just because running is working for me doesn't mean that you have to go through. Just know, I mean, I'm sure every person has passion in there, one kind of person or interest in there. Just because you have a limitation, the physical limitation, doesn't mean that you can't do it. Search it up. I can guarantee there's always someone else who's working on that. Someone else already pursued on the career, on the passion, right? You would definitely find it. So just go search it up and go for it. That's what I would say because I searched it so many things which I want to check, and there already somebody who's also who's already worked on, and they have some suggestions and tips. So just all you need to do is go search it up, and you'll find some kind of help.
I love that. Thank you. Okay, when you look at your life and your vision loss journey as a whole in its entirety, from just everything you shared and obviously so much more, from where you started to where you are now, what stands out to you? What have been some of the biggest lessons, teachings, or even just shifts that this experience has brought into your life?
My God, that's very
Is it a loaded
philosophical
question?
philosophical question, Sarah. I don't know I can answer
What
that,
did
but
you say?
again,
It's a what?
sorry,
What'd you say? It's a what question?
very philosophical,
Oh, well,
philosophical.
just whatever comes to mind because I want to leave listeners, even for you, right? And it doesn't have to be so deep if you don't want it to be, but just generally, like some things that pop up for you.
No, I would say it's especially just created so much opportunity. I wouldn't think I would experience what I'm experiencing without the vision if I didn't have the vision loss. The life, the perception of life has changed, right? I would not be worried too much about how much money I earn, what kind of car I drive. These are very petty things, very materialistic.
Hmm.
Now, what I would focus is okay, my runs, my physical and mental well-being, and my the music. What do I do to contribute to help to the community? My energy has shifted on this one here, rather than something else which a lot of people talk. I mean, I listen to a lot of people talking and all this, the financial aspects or career goals and whatnot, or being, the regular topics and talks. My focus or my interest has shifted slightly. I get excited when you talk about your hikes, your walks and runs, the music. If
Hmm.
you talk about the assistive technology tools, I wouldn't have looked into all these things if I haven't had this vision loss. That's what I would say.
Hmm.
So I treat this as an opportunity. That's a new life for me. Every day is learning for me. I talk to myself. I would separate the negative energy, but try to be positive and see how I can just help myself and people around me.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
I love that. You hit on so many things. I think really when you go through profound anything, any change, any loss, anything in your life, anything big, you really start to appreciate those
Yeah,
small things. And they're actually
correct.
not small.
Mm.
Those small moments are the big moments. And like you said, we usually strive for career, money, and all of this. And yes, that is important. I do value that. Of course, we need that to survive and to live and to be a part of society and a member of it. However, it's when something like that happens, you do really realize what's really important. And you start to really appreciate more. You start to have a lot more gratitude because you realize that life is short. Like, we
Right.
only get one life and we're going to go through hard things. We're going to go through really tragic things. But that's life. I think that's the purpose of it. We're all meant to go through that, but then to overcome all of that. And so for you to share that, that's really, really beautiful. And I love that. Okay, one final message for the listeners, and then we're going to do a little bit of a rapid fire. I'm going to ask you this or that, and then you just have to answer that quickly. But before we get to that, if there's anything else that's coming through for anyone who's listening who's going through a hard time, whether it's illness, loss, or any kind of life challenge, what message of hope, strength, or encouragement would you leave them with that you maybe haven't shared already?
No, I think we covered it. I think you covered it a lot in your previous podcast too. I think what they're going through, they're not the only person in this universe who is going through, who went through. Everybody goes through it. It's just that, take some time, right, reflect and see, try to come up with the coping mechanisms to get out of it and find out for help. Talk to people. There's
Mm.
always help. Just because you're talking to one person doesn't mean that you got all the help. Try to be positive and you'll definitely get over it. That's what I would say. That's what I did, and it helped me.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been such a great conversation. I hope you enjoyed having the
I
conversation as well. I'm really excited for everyone else to hear your story and to hear the transformation, even through all of that, the resilience and what have you. So thank you. But before we end it off, we're just going to do a rapid fire. I'm going to give you two options and you just have to pick one. Okay, text or phone call?
phone call,
Planner or go with the flow?
planner.
Hit the town or cozy night in?
What's the second? Sorry, what's the second option?
Hit the town or cozy night in?
Oh, it's I like both.
Yeah.
I like both still, right? I need my time for myself, and I love the town
I love
too.
that. I love that. Forest or ocean?
Yeah. I like forest. I like the nature. I like the greenery, the chirping of birds. I
Yeah.
love forest.
That one's a tough one. That's why I put it in there because I struggle because it depends on my mood.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thinker or feeler?
Both, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, both. Yeah,
Get
I
lost
think.
in a book or binge a TV series?
What's the first? Sorry, I missed the first part here.
Get lost in a book or binge a TV series?
I used to read a lot of books, but not anymore. So I would rather binge a TV series. Yeah,
Okay, last one. Rewrite the past or see the future?
see the future.
Yeah. I even asked Tara that, and it was automatic. See the future. I'd rather see the future because the past can't be changed, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that.
Very true. I would say I wouldn't change a single bit of the past.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chandra. We will close off now. So, for everyone else, you can stay tuned for this episode dropping once I get the editing done. But that's all for this episode. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Bye, everyone.